Boa noite, pessoal. Boa noite, só se for na Europa, né? Boa tarde aqui no
Good
Brasil.
evening in Europe, good afternoon here in Brazil, and good morning in the United States. It's very moving for us because Heitor is also from Brazil and is today one of the big composers in Hollywood. How many films have you done until now?
Oi, pessoal, tudo bom aí hoje?
Hello, hi.
Eu acho que sim, talvez uns 40,
40, 50,
e mais de uns 100
and more than 100
músico ou
as a
como
musician or as a co-composer with other composers.
uns 100,
Approximately 100, 120, something like that. Wonderful. Thank you very much for your presence. It is a personal and a professional pleasure. We always wanted you to participate in our festival, and now finally we managed. Heitor, I pass you the floor.
felicidades.
So
Total, assim, de estar.
I'm very happy for being here in this festival with you. I always follow the festival. It is very important for our culture. It is very important for everybody there and here.
E, como sempre, eu sempre quis participar.
As always, I always wanted to participate when you invited me in the last time. This time of the year is a time in which we are launching the films and the summer season and starting the Christmas season. But I always wanted to participate.
Parabéns para vocês.
So congratulations for really struggling and managing to have the success that you have. You deserve it. The audiences deserve it. And it's an honor for me to talk to you, my friend from Niterói.
Rapaziada, pô, mó barato estar aqui.
Very, very good. Very good to be here. So, Heitor,
Nesse formato, né, das pessoas fazerem
we thought about this possibility of people asking questions. It is a great opportunity for people to know, to be able to follow how things work. I'm going to start with a question from Alex Pfeiffer from Rio, one of the colleagues here from Imaging, and he says, in one of your interviews, you said that you usually record reading the script with speaking with a loud voice. Do you do that with all the projects? Let me try to clarify. Perhaps it might be, I might have said that in a different way. Sometimes I see the film without, I watch the film without any sound. For example, I get the style, the visual style, the timing of the cuts, the visual cuts. Exactly, the whole editing bit, and I try to familiarize myself. I mean, to understand the different times of the scenes. So I relate visually to the film, and afterwards I switch off the visual aspect and just leave the dialogues on, as if it were a radio. And I hear the film, I don't see the film. And I do that a few times. And I also do the same thing with the effect. So there are three ways of listening with the same image, just image without no sound. Then you listen to the dialogues, and then you just listen to the effects. It doesn't mean that I do that many times, but I frequently do that per scene. I listen to the whole film once, I watch it once, twice, because the film changes. So we have to adapt to the new reality of the film. And what these new editions cause to the plot or to the story. So visually, when you concentrate 100% just visually, you start to find out that visually the film also has a timing, and that during the years I learned that each editor has a style, in the same way that we try with time to establish and to discover our voice and our musical style. The editors have that as well. So, for example, with time, I actually discovered that the style of each picture editor that I was working with. As for what happens, there are so many moments in which I will have to play music and the actors and actresses will be speaking, that obviously the voice is an instrument as well. And it is even an instrument that is much more musical when the voice is not singing, because of the intonation. And sometimes the melody can be just like that. But when people are speaking, the intonation that the person used to interpret the character will be part of this sound palette. So I need to know which instrument is this actress, which instrument is that actor, what are the specificities in order to use that when I write the music, when they are actually acting. If it's a child, for example, like you see that the flutes, they're on this territory, and the oboe as well, and so on and so forth. So in order to understand it visually and sound-wise, which will be my future for sometimes, if it's an animation film, for example, I'll be working on it for a whole year. It's very interesting. We also mentioned that it is what we call, oh, you do soundtracks for the cinema. The soundtrack is not only music. Okay, the soundtrack means everything that has sound. I mean, it's in the foley, the dialogues, the music, all this needs to be orchestrated. Like when you have a band, and the members of the band can be the music and the dialogue. And you usually get the effects when you get the dialogues. No. That would be the ideal situation. No, things change drastically. Each project is a project, yes. And even in this process, when we try, I mean, you know, to answer Pfeiffer, this is a process that is alive. You always have to adapt. I think that's the magical word. I think we have to use this all the time. We have to be very flexible. You have to adjust. Everything may change. Sometimes you wrote a melody for a character and you spent 4 months, and then there's the first screening. You spent 4 months actually writing the cues. I mean, all this was for this character, and then they did a screening for a special audience, but you still have 6 months before the launching. And some people in the audience thought that this character was too serious. They haven't got any money more to spend. Everything was done. There's not much material to be edited. So the music has to solve the problem. And it will change the character to a certain extent. The character will become more creative. The weight of the seriousness will decrease. It will be dissipated by the music. Yes. And I think that adaptation or adjustment has to do with that sort of thing. There is a question from Marco Souza. What was the first animation film where you did the whole music that you composed? And which challenges did you have? I saw the Team America many years ago. I didn't know that you had done the music. I saw the film. I loved the film. I loved it. Oh, it was Heitor who did the music. It was brilliant. I loved it. I don't know whether coincidentally it was your first one.
O que acontece é que antes de eu ter feito meu primeiro filme,
before I did my first film as a musician for soundtracks, I started much before being a composer of a whole film. For example, in the Team America, that was Harry Gregson Williams, and Harry and many others as well, with whom I worked in that capacity, Paul, Hans, many other people. But Harry particularly, there was a moment in this participation, in my participations and the scores, that he said, all right, I'm going to write something for a guitar or something that is more rhythmical. Why, instead of you playing, why don't you write it? I give you the picture, and that will be your moment. And I did it. So the Team America worked that way, and many films that Harry did with Tony Scott, for example. I wrote many cues in that way.
Aí o pessoal, vocês traduzem isso da forma que vocês quiserem.
You translate that the way you want, but I never asked for anything. If people wanted to give me the credits, brilliant. Otherwise, never mind. Because I was there. I think what I was exercising was this main work, which was to do as best as you could. And then when I started to work with my friends, I realized that they lived under a lot of pressure. So for me, it was very easy to just have 10 guitars, cavaquinhas, charangos, and percussion and all that, and contributing for the film. Back to the question. I had already lived in terms of empathy. I had understood this pressure. I understood the value of the communication with the directors, with the artists, because I saw John Paul, I saw Hans and Harry going through that. And it was very nice to have seen that because they're very generous people. So when there was a meeting with a super Hollywood director, they never said, now it's my turn, just leave the room. Please hold my hand. It's a beautiful story. Because sometimes you're concentrated as a composer in a bigger structure, and perhaps your answer to a question of a director might be illustrated. And you're there having to think about how to make this person who asked the question, the director, the producer, how they need to feel at ease. And they have to feel secure, because they are insecure. Yes, they have it's they're going to give their baby to a guy that does something that he cannot do. So sometimes in those meetings, those serious, important meetings for them, I was there, and Hans used to say, can you play a bit of that theme for them? And so this theme that was orchestrated, and I'm showing this in this a big way with this variation with the orchestra. I want to show them that it also can be very intimistic. And people, because they are artists, because they like music, because they understand the importance of the music in the project and the film, and how sometimes the music will carry a scene. They used to stop and listen, and sometimes they would say, okay, so that means that we can do it this way, that scene. And that's how I met many of the directors and producers here, because of the generosity of Harry, Hans, John Paul, for taking me with them, and because I knew that how important that was for them. And it was my, sorry, Marcus, for this long answer. So in my first film was Curious George. Yes, Curious George. And the composer was going to be Hans, because Jack Johnson always kept in mind, how would it be to work with Hans? And Jack Johnson went to film school, and he did surf documentaries, etc. But Hans said, Heitor, I think that this film needs to be you. And I said, oh my God. So I introduce you to Jack, and let's see how things go. When I met Jack, he was wonderful. He's a wonderful person. He had his band. So when I said, okay, play a little bit for me to hear you, and I sort of closed my eyes and imagined the sound of his voice, and I imagined a bit the style of each of the musicians of the band, and how I could integrate those sounds if it had to become a score. So Havaiana with ukulele. Okay, perhaps we have an instrument in Brazil called cavaquinho, and perhaps we can have a dialogue between the cavaquinho and the ukulele, and I can use some of the songs as a main theme that the orchestra is going to play, and I can use some of my original, and that's how it worked. So the challenge, the second bit of the question, the challenge was for me to adapt to their timing. So I discovered at the very beginning, he was a really good surfer. So what did I do? You surf in the morning, I will be writing. When you're back in the afternoon, we just play, we jam. I show you what I did the whole night and the whole morning, and we see how we can work together during the afternoon. So the challenge was in the first days to understand how to establish this routine and for him and the band to feel comfortable. For example, I think I have it here. I can play that. There's an example of the instrument, of the cavaquinho, and how I showed him that a small instrument could also be embraced by his band or by the orchestra. Let me see what it works.
Muito legal.
Simplesinho.
Very good. It's very simple.
Estou desafinado aqui, mas seja lá o que for.
It's out of tune. I just wanted to show them how such a small instrument like the instrument of their culture as well, the ukulele, could be incorporated in the way of telling this musical story. And that's what I try to do. So at the end of the question, the challenge is always to keep the awareness in all the moments of other people, how other people are feeling, because you know who you are musically, you understand your impressions in terms of the film. Some films you like, others you don't like as much, and you have to feel your voice within all of that. And the challenge, the biggest challenge, is always other people, because I believe in the main factor of music, which is something that made me become a musician. When I heard music for the first time, with my uncles playing, it made me feel in a way as if there was another dimension. Even when I was a child, I realized that. So I imagine that music, there is music for the film, okay? But also there are the musical moments that you're going to go through and experience with those people, the director, the producer, people in the studio. The more music, the more you use your instrument, not like the one that was out of tune, the more you use your instrument and play for people, the more they feel calmer. It's a way of exposing yourself to them live, and it makes things easier, and it's cure, because everybody is too nervous. They was some of these animations, yeah, it takes me a year for me, but they bought the rights of the book years ago, and then it took them 3 years to write the script. So it is part of their lives from much before, from when I was introduced to it. So the music and its musical moments, and not necessarily the score, but the musical moments and the meetings and so on, I think this is very important. The presence of music has to be constant in those moments in order for people to experience what the music can bring. Because sometimes people comes from a meeting, a very serious meeting, and they arrive at my studio and I see that they're very tense. I wait 10 minutes before I start talking about business, before I start talking about the film. I play a musical piece that I just found out of a string quartet from Germany or whatever. I play something from Lupicínio Rodrigues, you know? Yes, because we live in an environment that is completely magical, completely different.
A maioria das pessoas tem um acesso à música de uma forma de entertainment, né? Tá ali aquela
environment that people have in an entertainment way, the little music for this and for that. And for us, music is a completely different planet. So what you're doing is you're creating the right conditions for people to be able to get into this planet in a delicate way. So they feel embraced by it, and they leave behind a bit the madness of those meetings, because it was a cure for me. Since I was a child, music was a cure for me. Perhaps I wasn't so sociable, so music helped me to have contact with other people. With the guitar, it became easier, but I became calmer, and I knew when I played the guitar at home, things became bad. I played a bit of the piano. So I think that's what I try to assure, that during the process, when you are writing the score, I provide this, the fact that the music is something nice that you can use in your life in many different ways. As you said, not only in the way that you mentioned as entertainment, but also as a cure. Without any doubt, people, they are not aware of the importance of the music in their lives. Otherwise, they would listen to much better music, or even perhaps the idea is something that will create awareness, but the music will do something to you that without any link to this awareness, you have a molecular relationship with it. Because I think that you're right, and that's why it is important to have musical education. It is important for children. Clayton used to talk about it importantly. He discussed that the most importance of the types of music for the types of activities for the different ages, he already understood. He had understood the influence of music in people's lives. As I'm going to do something. I'm talking to you. And these guys are trying to get in. I'm going to put them in a room. It's you and Jim Hescala with the dog. I love animals. The difficulties of the life of a composer in Hollywood. You don't know the amount of good things. Sometimes at the end, and then suddenly, yeah, I lose the take. But we're talking about the therapy of music, and I think that animals are very therapeutic in nature as well. I know that there are domestic animals, but their therapeutic strength in my life is amazing. The same when I go to the forest and I want to listen to the birds. We can talk about that later, but so they're members of my band. Let me ask you a question from João Batista from Belo Horizonte, because he said, do you see any difference between composing for animation for children and films destined to other for adults and other ages? Is there a difference between the audiences? I think that animation, that today an animation film, I mean, you have to think about the whole family, because at the end of the day, you can see that even in the choices of the songs in the film. There's a contemporary song, Justin Bieber, whatever, whoever, but also there might be pretenders or Elvis Presley or something, that in order for you to have the understanding that you are including the whole family. So I feel that music and the score, that it works like that. It's not music that it's like this, because today, in order to be clearer, children changed as well. What used to be for children is not anymore. When you are children with 7, 8 years old, they have so much information that goes beyond of, at least I used to imagine, that would be material for children, be it lullabies or whatever. So I feel that today, in order to write for those animation films, it means to write for the whole family, and something else for families in the whole world. So it is important for music to be international, universal, because one of the reasons why people ask me to work is because of that, because I'm always asking. So when we start a film, tell me one thing. I ask myself, but I also ask my collaborators. Okay, we know that this film, in the way that we are structuring it, might be a film for the American society, but the story, the way it is being told, and the music that is being written, composed for it, will people in Latin America understand it? Will people in Asia relate to it? Or Africa, whatever. So whenever I see that I can contribute, given the fact that I'm Brazilian, because we have this mixture, yes, because of this melting pot, I think that this is something that is very important, because we have the African culture, the European cultures, our Latin American neighbors. So if you pay attention to all these musics and styles, you already have much more knowledge than many other people, and you're much more international. Yes. Yeah, that's perfect. That's it. And things are like that. So the markets, the regional markets are very small. It doesn't make sense anymore. You can reach the whole world, and why not? So when I write for animation, that's exactly, I think about the whole family and about the families of the whole world. It's easier said than done. Yes, it's difficult, but I'm saying in practical terms. In practical terms, I'm absolutely sure I use instruments from all over the world. All my scores have, for example, kora, which is an African, harp, cavaquinho, ukulele, balalaika, exactly, percussion from all over the world. And I try to find instruments from different times, different eras. Going back to what we were saying before, empathy. Okay, this instrument might not belong to my culture, but certainly belongs to the culture of someone else who is going to be watching this film. So, and this person and this sound will be familiar to this person. And I think that's what I try to do. Wonderful. And there's one question that is very difficult from Dudu Viana from Rio. He asked, hey, so what was your biggest mistake as a composer? Something that you would do completely different, or a situation where you didn't feel that you were prepared, and I mean that you regretted that you would do differently now, that you think it was a big mistake? Dudu, it doesn't mean that I didn't make mistakes, but as I said at the beginning, it was a gift in my life that I started being a musician of the composers. They made the mistake before. And yes, exactly. Yeah. So I think that I learned many things of things that I shouldn't be doing. And I said also that those friends that were musicians were extremely generous because they shared with me their frustrations and their regrets. And because I was in the same room with my little instrument to show a more reduced, a simpler way of that same melody. So I was there, I saw it when they could have done it differently. But I can give you examples. I'm not going to say names, but in my case, I had a conversation with the director, and he told me, listen, you can do whatever you want, but don't do any jazz. That was his personal taste. So I told my team, this was one conversation. We had our meeting. So I took him to the car and he told me that, Heitor, you can do whatever you want in my film, but please don't make any jazz, which I love. But okay, it's his film. So you have to adapt. So when I came back to my studio and people were there, I told them, listen, thank you very much. It was a really nice meeting, thank you. But I just want to remind you that when I was with him outside, no jazz. So careful and recall me, and please tell me if I'm doing it. Oh, 2 months later, I was playing one of the last cues of the film. And the director was there listening. And someone in the space says, this music is very nice. It's a bit jazzy. I had to rewrite all the pieces just because of that. So when you work in a group, this thing of this empathy, you have to be demonstrating and expecting from people that work in your team, in your everyday team. I have a great team, a small team, but a very efficient team. And we learned with time that sort of lesson. It's more or less that all the time you have to observe others. Because to compose in the same way that you can use the music in a therapeutic way to calm down, to chill out, because for many people to make a film is something very stressing. We have to be very careful with everything that is happening around us. Body language. If I'm playing music, I have 40 minutes of music to play, and those people didn't hear it. Everybody enters the studio and they start to talk all the time. It was a terrible day. We all left at this meeting with the marketing who thinks that the film is completely different from what we actually want. And we know how important the promotion of the film is. So from those 40 minutes of music, I will have to invent a reason, and I will play. Listen, I have 5 minutes to show you. I'm sorry. I will wait for another better day to play. Because if I play 40 minutes for those people with that energy, they're not going to listen to me. They are blocked. It's not everybody that can actually compartmentalize and separate things. Even me. So that's what I do. It is a way of answering this question. I think that difficult moments, and I think the difficult moments that emerged were the moments in which I or my team didn't realize what was happening around us. You're talking about things that are very interesting in personal terms, and that really fit into many different situations that I've seen, because the person that is going to listen to the music and will decide whether the music that we do is good or not, this person is under a lot of pressure. And when you do that, and you do something very simple, instead of putting a big orchestra, if you do it with a guitar, you just show a simplicity. It comes easier to understand, and people will accept this possibility, and it's more intimistic. It invites the person. You're not showing something that is recorded, it's something that is live. Listen to this idea. Yes, this is very nice. This is very nice, because everybody wants to impress. You want to do use the whole orchestra, want to show everything almost ready, and sometimes that's not the best approach. This ready is a dangerous word, because you write the music of your dreams, then you present it. Then the person says, yeah, I like it, but it's a bit complicated. Then you say, okay, I understand. Okay, let me show you the elements of this complication. So I isolate, the flutes are doing this, the bass is doing that. There's a piano that is something, okay, sometimes I can tell you, you have to be prepared, because from the 35 instruments that you have in your composition,
cara, eu gosto disso.
Oh, I like that. The music was that.
Aí tinha atrás de todo mundo.
In the back. And the guy liked that. That's what I want. That's the magic of music, but you have to be prepared. For some things, you have to be prepared that all the other 10 cues that you still have to play were this praise. We're super. You can say, either you get 5 minutes and you mute and you only show the cues in that way, which is a bit ridiculous, or you expose yourself and you say, this is the first one of 11. I want to prepare you because the other 10 are all in the same way, but this thing that you really liked is in all other 10. Believe in me, go home, come back tomorrow or after tomorrow, and everything will include this new perspective. I'm understanding things now in a completely different way, and you're helping me to do that. And that's the way things work. The day before yesterday, I was talking to Bruce Broughton, and he's your fan, I love him. And he said, yeah, we were talking about something like that, and exactly that. The guy liked the music, but he said, take this out. And he took it. And now take that. And he started doing that. And it became something that Bruce got embarrassed, thought it's horrible. But people loved it. And his wife said, that's the best music that you ever did for a film. And it saved your marriage. Because we live in a planet, we know about the potential, we know the techniques, and we know that it can become wow, but sometimes people are just connected with a little leitmotif, a sound, they just want that because that really affected their hearts, yes. And going beyond, I mean, talking about the challenges, one thing that I learned to detach myself a bit from what I did. Let's say that, for example, I might write this, and in 2 hours, this will be huge. Then I leave the room. But before, no, I would spend 24 hours just doing this little bit. And today, I'm trying to learn or to teach myself to just leave the room after I've done the arrangement and to come back and be brave enough to say, okay, you loved these 2 hours, but please, okay, it didn't work. It doesn't need to be this way, and so on. You have to tell yourself the truth. It is another challenge. There's another question here. João Vitor says, so when you're doing arrangement for an animation, can you ask for changes in the timing of the animation to fit the ideas? That's the question. Otherwise, how can you manage to get the vibe? Tom and Jerry, where animation and, for example, when the music actually dances together with the animation, João Vitor asks.
Você muda a música. Eles não mudam nada. A verdade é, a música está pronta e eles mudam a cena 50 vezes. Então, olha só. Vamos dizer, João, vamos dizer que a sua melodia... vou tocar super simples, tá? Mas vamos dizer assim... Ok? Existe um tempo para que essa ideia musical ocorra, né? Espera. Então, quando você escreveu, quando essa melodia veio a você, existia um tempo dentro daquela cena onde isso se encaixava. Mas com o tempo, a cena foi sendo cortada. Muitas vezes, de novo aquela palavra que eu estava dizendo antes, adaptação. O final do filme, no final de tudo, a música se tornou isso. É quase como você tem que, dentro daquela melodia, descobrir e procurar nas novas condições que a nova picture te deu, a nova cena te deu, a essência daquela ideia melódica.
As
Sabe?
notas que ancoram a ideia, né?
A gente sabe que o downbeat
Tá na cabeça de todo mundo.
right? So, talvez seja
É uma redução da melodia para as suas partes essenciais, né?
exato. Então você tem que aprender. Ou pode ser que a sua melodia seja só tá.
Isso é muito legal. Cara, deixa eu te contar uma coisa aqui que me aconteceu que foi muito legal, que tem tudo a ver com esse negócio, que eu faço muita coisa para publicidade, né? Aí uma vez um cara me pediu para fazer um funk carioca. Puta, aí eu, caraca, mas aquela coisa da adaptação, vou aprender como é que faz esse troço, né, bicho? Aí chamei uns caras que entendiam da parada, né? Fui me informar, fui aprender, porque você não é porque você não gosta daquele estilo, não quer dizer que aquele estilo seja fácil, né? Tem as suas malandragens. Aí eu aprendi tudo, fiz rapidinho, tal, rapidinho, fiz no tempo que tive que fazer, mandei pro cara, chamei um garoto que cantava rap, tal, cantava esse funk carioca, beleza. Aí mandei lá pro cara, o cara falou, pô, Zé, tá legal, mas pô, não tá soando rap. Eu falei, mas como não tá soando rap, cara? Aí, não, falei isso pra ele. Eu falei, não, beleza, vou ver o que que tá acontecendo. E fiquei queimando a cabeça. Falei, cara, mas eu chamei os caras, eu fiz o troço todo certinho e tal. Eu falei, mas é um erro meu. Se o cara não tá gostando, é um erro meu. Ponto. Né? Se o cara que me encomendou a música não tá gostando, o erro é meu. Eu entendi alguma coisa errada. Aí fiquei que nem um maluco, que nem um maluco. Aí eu saquei, bicho. A turma que escuta o funk carioca aqui, eles escutam a música muito alto, naqueles boombox, saturado pra caramba, distorcido. Bicho, eu meti uma distorção, um beat crusher na master no final, a mesma música, eu mandei pro cara, o cara falou, pô, agora tá soando funk e tal.
Exato, exato.
Então não era uma questão musical, é uma questão de sonoridade. A gente fica atrás das questões musicais às vezes, né? Mas a questão da
Sim.
sonoridade, do overall da coisa que o cara percebe, que o cara entende.
Por isso, né, de novo, né, essa coisa da empatia, né, cara? É de você se colocar na posição da outra pessoa,
Isso aí.
né? E de escutar com os ouvidos delas, sabe?
Isso.
E
Isso aí.
o que é legal, para todo mundo que estiver aí escutando, o legal desse processo, dessa empatia, é que você se conhece como músico.
Uhum.
Mas quando essas pessoas quando você começa a perceber o gosto, os desejos musicais das outras pessoas, você tem que sair da sua visão
Sim,
e em se adaptando à visão delas, você tem que começar a descobrir outras coisas para a sua musicalidade. Que
certamente.
aí você seja capaz de se conectar com aquela pessoa.
Exatamente.
Em fazendo isso, você está ampliando a sua musicalidade,
Certamente.
sabe? Então, no final de tudo, é mais positivo assim, é melhor para você como músico, sabe?
Claro.
Pode ser doloroso, sabe? Pode ser um saco quando estiver acontecendo, mas no final, quando o tempo passar, sabe? E você teve 10 experiências assim, cara, foram 10 vezes que você teve que sair da sua comfort zone,
Na
sabe?
zona de
Da sua
conforto,
forma
né?
confortável de ser você mesmo, musicalmente, e ter que se descobrir dentro dessa nesse novo relacionamento e descobrir novos sons que você nunca fez, melodias que você nunca escreveu, harmonias que você nunca escreveu e agora elas fazem parte do seu repertório pessoal.
Isso aí. Muito bom, muito bom, muito bom. E aí, o Marquinhos Souza perguntando aqui também, o seu processo criativo, você utiliza sempre o violão como ponto de partida, ou outros instrumentos, ou a voz? Como é que isso varia? Como é que é esse negócio?
Ok. Sim, a voz. Angry Birds, por exemplo, uns 40% daquele score eu escrevi cantando.
Olha que legal.
Então I look a picture,
Uhum.
tá? E começo. Next
Legal.
track.
Tá pronto, pronto. Gravou?
And then that's not the Angry Birds. I'm coming up with this now, but let's say, and then
Uhum. Que legal.
tudum, 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 né? E por aí vai. Então eu cantei várias coisas. Essa é uma forma. Depois que eu canto, eu vou lá e transcrevo, sabe? Então, que instrumento seria legal nesse momento para substituir a minha voz quando eu cantei a melodia? Que tipo de instrumento seria legal para fazer a linha? Putum, pudidum, o baixo, né? E depois se tivesse um arpejo, que instrumento seria isso, sabe? Então, o que você ao fazer isso, você descobre que a- a- as coisas que você canta já tem um som dentro, sabe? Um som embutido atrás dessa ideia que você
Algo
cantou.
proposto, né? Tem uma proposição ali por trás, né?
Exato, e você começa a se descobrir, saca? Toda vez que eu faço, pudum, pududum, mas se eu cantei meu baixo da próxima vez, aí não dentro de mim mesmo que o som de baixo é diferente do outro, sabe?
Sim.
Sabe? É diferente do que eu cantei na outra ideia. Então
Sim.
você começa a ampliar essa paleta musical que só existe dentro da sua cabeça.
Sim.
Outra coisa legal de cantar é que se você quiser, por exemplo, fazer... vamos dizer que você usa um clique. Vamos dizer... Pom barum barum, parum barum, pom barum barum, parum barum bom, parum parum, padum padum, pom padum padum, pom tarum parum bam, tum padum padum bam, bom parum parum, pom parum parum, pom baradum darum dum daredum, tantadum, tantaradum, tataradum, 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 tataradum. É importante que você saiba cantar dentro e fora do clique. Mas é legal
It's important that you can sing in and outside of the click. You should not miss it. Yeah, you can count outside of it, but it's there. You know you're outside of it, but you don't know where. It's something like a polyrhythmic. Yeah, but if you had to play, I don't know about yourselves, but about me, if I had to sing it on the guitar, on an electric guitar, on the piano, with all of that rhythmic complication against the tempo and so on, and having to think about harmony and so on, it would be a big challenge. I'd stop at the first bar. So I think this issue of singing an idea, that's the most immediate idea. That's the most immediate and the freest way. However, a good player you are, yeah, there are mannerisms.
Mas a voz, cara, faz... Eu sei que vai...
Yes, there are mannerisms to instruments, but the voice goes this way, that way. It's like an orchestra with violins and flutes and piccolo and afterwards you'll try to find a way in which you'll be able to replicate the effect you did with your voice originally. Now, this is the sung side of it. That's how I start a composition when I start by singing. Another way is by MIDI. For instance, I have this MIDI guitar. Let's suppose, oh, this is a piano sound.
Whatever, tô inventando aqui.
Whatever it is, I'm just, guessing here. So I capture that on the keyboard. I'm going to do it again. It's not going to be the same thing, but what did I do? Okay, well, I suppose...
Whatever. Aí eu vou lá.
Whatever. Then I go to the... Well, that's kind of bad, but... Where is it?
Seja lá o que for.
whatever it is. That's how it goes. So I do that with the MIDI guitar, and that's instantaneous. It's fast.
Mas o legal é que já tá.
But the nice thing about it is that it is there as MIDI within the sequencer.
Agora pode se
So what I did can now become this as well.
e pode ter qualquer som,
Sim.
né?
And it could have whatever sound because your information coming from the MIDI is already there. So that's sometimes I write it this way.
E o microfone.
Or I start the MIDI and the microphone.
Então se eu quiser,
So if I want,
o que eu toquei?
so what did I play?
Eu já
Let's suppose I wanna do some follow-up and do the melody.
de volta no piano.
So let me get back to the piano.
Sacou? Aí pode ficar mais louco
So you
ainda.
see, it could be, as crazy as it may get. And you go on creating. Because I recorded the melody on my voice, and then I played it on the MIDI, and I cleaned this horrible piano I just listened to, and I will play it again,
Já transpõe o que eu cantei.
and I will transcribe what I sang. I will pick up a flute, for instance, or something else. So I I have a whole set of ideas.
Você desconecta da imagem.
And there's a moment in time in which you disconnect from the image, do you? Because I like this process. There's a moment in which I just, I decided what I want, more or less, and I like to disconnect from the image. I stop looking at the image. So do you have moments like that, or are you in constant relation with the image? No. My life has been more closely connected to animation recently. So things are very fast there. I do write a suite, for instance,
Parte A, B, C,
which got part A, part B, part C. I also write
rap, sabe? E
Rap.
sad, né?
happy and sad, I'm sorry,
A versão daquela melodia
a different version of that melody.
triste,
A happy one, a sad one, slow, fast,
isso. Eu
all of that. I prepare it all.
Mas na verdade nos filmes de animação,
But actually, in animation films,
material eu vou poder usar
I will be able to use very little of that material from the beginning to end.
porque a não ser que sejam cenas, isso eu tenho também
Unless those are scenes, this is something I've tried to change my style
mais unir cada vez mais
and increase or try to unite those scenes. But it's different because
então às vezes você está completando
in animation, you are complementing the acting. You're actually complementing the character or completing the character in live action, where there are real human things. You do not need to come into the realm of completing what they are doing, because they are incredible doing what they are already doing. So you're there to provide another dimension to it. Well, the same thing happens in animation, but the nice thing nowadays is, how do you do that without being cartoon, without being so straightforward? Like they're sad, so let me write sad song, sad music. No, exactly because of that family thing.
cada vez mais humanizando a música.
We are humanizing music, animation music,
Exato, que abranja
and getting that to comprise
em termos de
everybody in terms of emotion.
então
Yeah,
a gente
cool.
acaba tendo que ser o que
So at the end of the day,
aquela coisa dos três patetas,
it's not the thing of the Three Stooges, slapping themselves, or the Minions. I write songs to those guys, but it has a lot of that. So sometimes you have to play this music, which is the character's soul,
filme de animação não
because this is something that lacks in animation films.
a alma
So you have to help
personagem animado
show the animated character's soul.
se apaixonou por uma
So those guys sitting on the chair who fell in love with a cup,
como a gente faz hoje em dia, né?
or a character like we do.
Nada, assim, né?
in an animated manner.
Então, é uma coisa menos sonoplástica,
Very
né? A
interesting.
música ser
It's less of a sonoplasty,
mais
so
uma
being less of sonoplasty and having a poetic side, as you put it. Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Essa coisa de como eu escrevo,
And in order to wrap it up,
faz parte
the way I write it,
do processo.
there's something else that's part of my process.
Uso like
Here.
instrumentos malucos.
I also like to use some crazy instruments. I'll play this instrument. I like to write lots of stuff, lots of different stuff in this instrument. It looks a gamba viola.
É, mais ou menos. Então,
Something like that.
essa é uma forma de tocá-lo.
This
Obviamente,
is one way I can play it, obviously,
mas eu também faço assim, ó, quer ver?
but I always do something like this, for instance.
Qual o nome desse instrumento?
What's the name of this instrument?
É violão, guitarra, viola.
Viol guitar.
Ela tem
It's a
traste,
viola
né?
guitar.
Ela tem traste.
O Ivo aqui comigo, tem a Emily.
I've got Ivo and Emily with me.
Antes da gente acabar, eu quero falar só um pouquinho sobre a importância do time. Mas
Claro, por favor.
Então, mas olha só, esse instrumento você pode fazer.
You can do this with this instrument, for instance.
Ou você pode.
Or you can do.
Som de violoncelo, né? Afinação de violoncelo, não?
Sounds like a cello.
Afinação de violoncelo.
It's got the same tuning.
Tá ali,
No, it's a guitar.
tudo em quadro. Que coisa mais linda.
All in fourths. Beautiful.
Genial. Eu quero um negócio desse, rapaz. Vou
You
arrumar.
know, whoa, incredible. I want something like that. I loved it. I want to get some of that to me. Another technique. This is Brazilian kind of stuff, right?
Essa música.
You know the song.
Fundamental é mesmo o amor. É impossível ser feliz sozinho.
Vai por aí.
É.
And so it goes. So there's 50,
Que são assim, sabe?
50 odd instruments or more
Sugerem outro tipo
that suggest another kind of music altogether. And I think this is very important because it's so cool because film music allows us to open up
sonora, sabe?
the sound palette.
Que esse instrumento é importante.
Just as this instrument is important, I also do
Muitos dos meus filmes,
many of my films, my 16th,
entendeu?
it comes out of that.
Sextempo seriam semicolcheias, pessoal.
É, então seria para estabelecer
This would be the 16th.
subdivisão,
So to establish this super subdivision,
né? E depois começa a fazer
I go the 16 and then I go.
depois que eu fiz isso, aí eu faço, aí eu
After I do that, I go.
sabe, toda essa coisa que eu fiz.
So all of those things that I did, tick, tick,
Aí eu
tick.
começo a botar notas, sabe? Pitch.
And I start to put in notes.
O processo de feedback teu é muito forte, né?
This feedback process is
Seu é muito forte.
it's a very strong kind of thing. You're doing one thing, complementing that with something else, then you go back, and then you change, and you swap, and you go through this feedback process. I think it's very interesting.
Acontece muitas vezes.
You know what? It happens
Procurando
quite often.
ícones
You
musicais.
keep looking for musical icons.
Vamos dizer que
Let's say it
ficou meio distorcido, mas desculpa, gente.
was kind of distorted. I apologize, but
Vamos dizer que eu estou fazendo isso,
let's suppose I'm doing this,
né? Mas
but
tinha sempre por trás disso uma coisa assim.
in the background there was always something like
Um ostinato.
Só. Não estou usando pedal.
I'm not using pedals.
Ok. Em determinados momentos,
at certain moments,
Esquece isso.
forget this,
Tudo que você precisa é só.
because all you need,
Que vai remeter a pessoa àquilo também.
Exato.
that's going to refer to the person, to refer the person to that too.
Formam o grande
So all of
esquema,
those things that put the big scheme together, all of the little things, they're just as important as the big scheme of things,
grande orquestração.
as
Porque
the big
aquela-
orchestration.
Como é que era a palavra?
So what was it like?
Lembra?
You remember that?
Bruce Broughton chama isso my first lousy
Bruce Broughton calls that my first lousy idea. He says, stick to your first lousy ideas,
Então,
because it was hidden in the background. It's subliminary.
então, às vezes,
It's there.
quando a pessoa está pensando,
So it might be that when you're thinking,
estabelecer que esse
but then you don't want to establish that this thought, the character's
já mais
thought,
completa,
has this more complete kind of thing.
isso já define algumas coisas, né? Você quer
That sort of sets a few things.
Aí você pode
So you're looking for the definition here, and then you can go.
whatever, né? Vai por aí, por aí.
Whatever.
Então acho que é mais ou menos isso.
That's how it goes.
Eu adoro em animação,
What I love about it, animation is the freedom.
sabe? A gente
Yeah,
pode-
cool,
a gente
cool.
pode- a música pode ser muito mais elástica.
Music
pelo
can
menos
be a lot more elastic,
eu tive
at
como
least
compositor.
in my
Eu
experience
fazia
as a composer.
eu já
Right
fiz
now, I'm doing this.
vários, já
I've
fiz
done
música
documentaries. I've done
com pessoas de verdade, obviamente
music
muito,
for real
meus
persons,
e
real person things.
pessoas, né?
My own, and I also participated with other people. But animation has got this stuff to it, which is to allow imagination, musical imagination, sound imagination, to go perhaps a little further beyond. And correct me if I'm wrong, but animation people, they've got that expectation, don't they? It's that kind of thing. Amaze me. As you mentioned very clearly, you do not have any artistic support from an actor who brings this emotional interpretation load, because the guy is, the best of best, cream of the crop. But so you don't need to be complimenting things. That's a feeling I've got. That's what they want. Bring different stuff to me, different sounds, so that it becomes unique. That's very, very nice. And the history of animation.
Imagina a música, por exemplo.
For example,
Como é que é o nome? De Aquino and the internalization. Inside Out. Remember?
Inside Out.
Inside Out. Do you remember Inside Out? So there are many scenes where you can be completely sure that, okay, I mean, it's already very internalized. The acting of animation is amazing. But when you actually put Michael's music, it becomes much bigger. So I think that the animation artists, they are in such a level where they humanize the characters. And we can see that with João Saldanha.
Como é que é Saldanha? Isso aqui é Saldanha.
Esqueci o nome dele. João Saldanha, porque eu estava lendo.
João Saldanha, because before we started, I was seeing the game in the PSG, and there was a comment about someone talking. I will remember his name. So the animation artists today who write the stories, the animators, they are amazing. Can you find out about the director? Because I have to see his name. Heitor, there is a question here from Alberto. I think it's Alberto Rosenblatt. Yeah, he's fantastic. In your professional level, the budgetary questions are transparent for you, or you do not participate in all that? Carlos Saldanha. If you see his interviews, and if he sees me calling him João Saldanha, you are the João Saldanha of animation, because you're a wonderful person, because you contributed for our culture. So, so one nice thing of Carlos Saldanha, because I love birds. And Carlos is like that as well. Like an ornithologist all the time. Yes, sometimes you don't even need the glasses. The good thing is to be in the forest and to listen to the birds, and you to know which bird it is, because in the Amazon, the majority of the population of the birds is there on the top. But they sing very loudly, and it is important to see which which bird it is. And Carlos knows about it. There's a site with that. Yes. I was with I had an ornithologist girlfriend once. What about the budget? Exactly. It's madness, because I make films that are rich minions and the Despicable Me. They're films that didn't cost so much and still do not, but nevertheless, they make a lot of money. But I also make many other animation films or not animation films where people have almost no money, or I do some where they don't even pay me. That's nice. I've done video games like that, films like that, where I feel the love, the devotion of the director to the project, and I have a time. And I say, okay, perhaps the minions or the Despicable Me came to my life, so I can also help, I can participate, and I can tell this person, don't worry about money. I cannot say that all the time because I'm not rich, because then you are going to have to worry about money. But I think it's nice. I'm not rich, but I live a comfortable life because of music. From the very beginning of my career, music can be something that if it's difficult now, but it was difficult for me many times. I came to the United States to clean people's houses. I spent a year like that, but I knew it was just the beginning. So whilst I was cleaning people's houses, I was studying with great masters, and later on, it was worth old investment. So when sometimes I feel that with the films that cannot pay, it's a way of paying back, of thanking, of saying, okay, God and God of music, thank you very much for everything, and thank you for putting me in the possibility of being able to help someone. So there are films in which people have $10,000, $5,000, or $0,000. And there are films where people have $5,000, for example. So I have to be realistic. So what I do, I program many things. I play a lot to make things more human. And with $5,000, I invite great musicians that know that when I have the opportunity of having a big film, I can pay them much more. And thank God, I think they understand it, that it's not the moment to charge a lot simply because I do not have the money, the project hasn't got it, but they know that I believe in the talent of this person that I'm working for free for, and that from this talent might assure us work later on. This director has no money, that after a series in Netflix will then earn a fortune, and he or or how can say, okay, now we have money. So you know what I do sometimes before I start a project, for people that actually accept that playing for nothing, before asking them to work for this rich series, I already pay them some money. So I think this thing with money, when there's a little bit or nothing or a lot, is also a way of showing where your heart is, for you to demonstrate the importance of people for you, because alone you're not capable of doing anything. Alberto, I think there's a lot of that. When I can, I pay. When I cannot pay, I don't pay or pay a little. But in the majority of the cases, when they paid little or nothing, 5 years later, this person who didn't have any money now is in a position of power and called me to do things. And I'm going to call exactly the same people that helped me before. And we're going to do something nice. Then I'm going to invite everybody and we're going to have nice dinner. Guto Menezes is here in the Greater Violin, or violon. Guitar viol. It's like a viola. Jonathan, who does it? You know what? Can I send you a link? Because many people, I talked to him, I told him that one of the strings broke, and he's a great musician. Jonathan Wilson. You see, João Saldanha, Carlos Saldanha, you know, I have that problem. Okay, we have very few minutes to finish because we have our time. You wanted to introduce your team? Yes, I want to. Yes.
I just want to show you. Ivo é do Brasil.
He's from Brazil. He just arrived here a few months ago. Emily. Without a team, there's nothing you can do. Something else that is very important. They are amazing musicians. So I feel that what I explained, that Hans gave me a film, I hope that I might be able to do the same thing for them. So that, you know, the future is better for all of us and we help each other. I think that in our career, in our métier, it is something that we can always do because we are also our own bosses. And so it is your responsibility. You are responsible for guiding your business. So I try to call people that are talented, that have a good vibe, a good karma, that are hardworking, and not every day is a happy day. So they have to be therapeutic for me as well. And that's it. Alone, we don't get anywhere. No. Can I say something? This thing alone, you don't get anywhere. For all of you who are there listening to this, I think that the most important thing is for you to always be open for someone else to change your life. In my life, and it started with my uncles because I had a musical family. Then I met Sergio. Then I met Arthur Maia, who was always wonderful and introduced me to Ivan Lins. And then I was introduced to Stuart, and then I was introduced to Simply Red. And then I feel Raw introduced me to Hans Zimmerman. And Hans also changed my life. All these people changed my life for the better. So we always have to be very open. There are many guardian angels that look like a human being. So believe in that. Each one of you, you have your guardian angels, and I hope that I will bless you, bless your dreams, your career, for you there, for Marcos, for your festival, and without being religious, but let's say from the powers that guide our inspirations and stuff. I hope that you will be full of those different powers, forces. Thank you very much. I feel that I'm working alone, but I'm not in solitude. I have the support of everybody who understand how difficult this career can be, but there are many good things in it as well. And I hope that your career that will bring as much happiness as it brought to me. Well, very well. Unfortunately, we couldn't answer all of the questions, but Luciana Mello loved the interview, said she is even a greater fan now, that you're wonderful. Guto Menezes, Miriam Nogueira, all of them love the debate with your vibe, with what you actually are part.
Como você chegou e o que você está metabolizando disso e devolvendo para o mundo. Isso é muito importante, né, Heitor?
Vai, corre, corre! This is very important. Many people, they get to a certain financial recognition and they give back things that are not very nice. But the cycle that you're helping to maintain is very positive. Thank you for saying that, and believe in music that exists within you. That's all. It's like the athletes that have got all these medals. You have to trust, you have to believe, and the medal is not necessarily you still feel, you have to feel inspired. I think that's success, that inspiration. Inspiration is alive, and that's success. Happiness for all of you, and let's hopefully we'll be able to hug and have a beer. So thank you very much for people that are going to watch it on replay. We're going to leave it for a year. It's going to be online for everybody, for the people of the technical part, the translators, everybody doing wonderful work. Thank you very much. Thank you. I would like to thank Banco do Brasil for the sponsorship, and those who are there, please enroll in our channel and our association, because together we are stronger and we can do better things. Link. We'll see each other. Thank you very much. Okay. Bye-bye. I'm your fan.
Ano que vem, a gente